Hey, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast. I'm your host, John Hart, with Luna, my guitar, and today we're going to talk about a topic that affects everyone, but can be especially challenging for neurodivergent individuals, which is stress. Each episode is broken up into a traffic light format where I'll share insights in the red section, improvised babble in the amber, and recommendations you might find handy in the green. As artists, we often find ourselves in high-pressure situations, such as performances, collaborations, and deadlines. These situations can take a toll on our mental and physical health, and as neurodivergent musicians, we may experience stress differently from neurotypical individuals. However, there are various ways to manage stress and take care of ourselves. So let's head on over to the red section where we can go into more insights. Okay, firstly, it's essential to understand what stress is and how it affects our bodies. Stress is a natural response to a perceived threat which triggers the release of hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. While small doses of stress hormones can help us perform better, chronic stress can have severe negative effects. Chronic stress can lead to anxiety, depression, fatigue, and physical health problems, which I'm going to go into deeper in future episodes as we ramp up this podcast. As neurodivergent musicians, we may be more sensitive to stress and experience it more acutely. We may struggle with regulating our emotions or processing sensory information, which can make stress more challenging to manage. However, it's crucial to prioritize our mental and physical health, especially in high-pressure situations. Physical activity is an effective way to manage stress. It has been shown to reduce stress hormones and improve mood. Even if we can't commit to regular gym sessions, going for a walk or doing some gentle stretches can help us relax and clear our minds. Exercise doesn't have to be intense or time-consuming. Even small amounts of physical activity can make a difference. Mindfulness practices like meditation and deep breathing are also helpful in managing stress. They teach us to become more aware of our thoughts and feelings and regulate our emotions more effectively. Mindfulness practices can help us develop a more positive and compassionate attitude towards ourselves, reducing feelings of self-doubt and anxiety. With many apps and resources available, it's worth exploring to find out what works best for us. We must prioritize self-care when managing stress, taking time to rest and recharge. As musicians, we often put pressure on ourselves to constantly improve and succeed, but it's crucial to remember that our worth as artists is not solely determined by our productivity or success. Taking a day off from practicing or indulging in a hobby unrelated to music can help us relax and recharge. Self-care practices like getting enough sleep, eating well, and staying hydrated are also important in managing stress, and I struggle with this on a daily basis. Additionally, seeking support from others can be helpful. This might mean talking to a trusted friend or family member or seeking professional help from a therapist. Many musicians struggle with mental health issues, and it's okay to reach out for help when we need it. And therapy can be an effective way to develop coping strategies and managing stress. And finally, we must recognize and address the sources of stress in our lives. This might mean setting healthy boundaries in our personal or professional relationships, or reevaluating our priorities and goals. As neurodivergent musicians, we may need to make adjustments to our environments or routines to better support our mental health. For example, we may need to limit sensory input or find ways to manage our time more effectively. It's important to be compassionate with ourselves and acknowledge that managing stress is an ongoing process. So that is it for the insights in the red section. I'm now going to go into my convoluted and improvised babble in the amber. See you then. Okay, so welcome back. We're now into the amber section of this podcast episode, which is about stress. And oh man, stress is like a 24/7 shadow that's just constantly, with me the whole time. And a lot of you who are working musicians, even just general people, can relate to this. But I can definitely say that stress is a major part of my life. It's always been a major part of my life. And I know in the previous episode, I talked about mental health. And I think stress can then manifest along with, anxiety, then it can go into depression, and then it can go into so many other things, which has gone into crisis. And this is why I want to kind of move up the ladder gradually along this, because with this podcast, I want to go into neurodiversity, I want to go into musicianship, and I want to talk about all the different subjects I can. And it's going to be a long podcast. My aim is to get to 100 episodes one day so I can talk about everything. But anyway, stress. And the reason why I want to do this episode is I'm in the middle of the school holidays at the moment. And, I work, I run a business, I'm a parent, I'm a husband, and then obviously just trying to run life. Obviously run this life as a neurodivergent. But the thing is, trying to juggle all of these balls is a full-time job. And when you don't have that support network, like for instance, my business, because of the lack of finances, I can't hire someone. So I have to do it all of myself. But one of the mottos that I've got for this year is outsource your weaknesses and focus on your strengths. And I think that's a really, really powerful statement that I'm trying to carry around, but I know it's not going to be an overnight thing. Now, in the middle of school holidays at the moment, I am out of routine. So a lot of my guitar teaching work in schools is during term time, and I'm building up my business. So COVID crashed it. And then obviously I had a year out because of my mental health. So it really damaged my business. And also after like 15 years of guitar teaching, I was super bored and I wanted a change in career. But then when I tried to change, it created more stress in my life. And I do find that with my neurodivergent brain, along with trying to lead, a family life, it just doesn't slot together sometimes. Sometimes it's in harmony for, it can be for an hour. A lot of the time I feel like my head is in chaos. Now, routine is a really, really important thing. Now, during term time, I got myself into a routine this year. I was getting up at 6. I was doing a workout for about 30 minutes, a HIIT workout, which I think was insanity. Which is nuts, but it was the only thing that has got variety. I've tried running, I've tried doing these other things, but this thing I can just pop on the laptop, shorts and t-shirt, do it in 30 minutes. No one's up yet. And then what I can do then is habit tag some other tasks after that. And that really started my day well when I have routine in regards to my schools, and then I then pick up the kids and I do things. It was stressful and tiring. But when I am in school holidays, now I'm going to go into another episode about parenting and relationships and other things, but I am completely out of routine at the moment. So I'm not getting up in the morning to do my exercise. I'm not eating properly. I am feeling more exhausted all the time. And, obviously I love my children to bits, but at the same time trying to just juggle their needs, my needs, and other people's needs around me, it's really, really difficult. And I really, really struggle with that. So when I'm out of routine, it feels like the wheels have come off. And this happened during COVID. I think that was the worst time. And I'd sit in the corner of the kitchen and I would just break down. every single day, and I just found it too much. And as much as people like, oh no, you're taking on too much, or, you know, try doing this and try doing this. And it's almost like I didn't want people to fix me because I knew what I needed to do. I just want someone to sit with me and listen to me and just kind of go, it's all right. Just pick yourself up and keep going. Or, right, go over to your guitar, play your guitar for 5 minutes and then get back into it. I just needed a break. And sometimes that's what I need. I need a break away from everything. But I can't vocalize that. I don't know what's going on. I'm in the middle of all of this chaos. And I know the coping mechanisms I need, which again, I'm going to talk about coping mechanisms down the line. But to access that in my brain and to be able to go, oh, I'm feeling stressed right now. Right, this is what I need. It's really, really hard. And I find a lot of people can relate to this. We now have added stresses, and it can be financial stress, it can be emotional stress, and it could be work stress. It can be social media stress. So many different things now these days, which are almost they're like little extra weights that we add on top of us feeling shit all the time. And I kind of compare it to if you've got the Aero chocolate bar, which has got lots of bubbles, and then you've got a stress bubble here, and then you add another stress bubble, you add another stress bubble, and you've got a stress bubble bath, and then something's going to pop. And more often than not, it's that tiny little thing that you add on top. And then when that other person around you, whether it's a loved one or it's a friend, whoever it is, sees that you've reacted to that tiny little thing, they see it as an overreaction, but actually it's just been built up over and over and over. Lots of these stress bubbles. And I try and visualize it like a bath, and a bath can actually be a really, really calming, relaxing thing. It's not for me sometimes because my brain is still going like the clappers. I love the analogy of a neurodivergent brain, especially ADHD, where you have a Ferrari for a brain with bike brakes. And I definitely feel that. It's like a sports car. It just keeps going. And I've had so many friends and family before sort of go, what's going on? You can't stop. Or, why can't you sit still? And actually, it was my mum actually who just allowed me to talk one day. Just allow me to freely talk. And she would just say, that's just John. That's just what he has to do. And it was just such a lovely comment that was sort of validating how I was feeling. But I think when you're walking around all the time, you're trying to adjust to life as best as you can. But when you've got all these emotional pressures, and whether it's I'm not succeeding, I'm not doing enough, and there is also a sense you feel unsettled. And that can create more stress. So I will be with the kids, but then I know I need to be doing something on the business, and then I'm doing something on the business, but I need to be with the kids, and then I need to spend time with my wife, and I need to, improve my music, and I need to do this, and I need to do it, and it always feels like need, and I don't really put myself first in any of that. And the problem is I get so overwhelmed that I start to procrastinate massively. My focus completely goes out the window, especially when I'm in school holidays. Even though things have been set out, activities have been planned, and maybe there's been a routine of some sorts. But, during Christmas, during summer holidays, during Easter holidays, whatever it is, weekends, I struggle. I really struggle. And I kind of feel that I want the time off, but I don't want the time off. Because if I have the time off, I know I could just be sitting there, maybe on my phone procrastinating, maybe just sitting at a screen for ages, just doing nothing, and it's not productive. And I won't get a lot done at all. One of the other things I found with my stress is it can really manifest when there's no momentum. And to have a music career, you really need momentum. Now, we can have those periods of time where we're like, right, I'm in building phase right now, but it's not going to come into fruition, until months later. And I've talked about this in previous episodes. But when there's nothing happening at all, and you haven't got any dopamine hits in regards to, a booking hasn't come in, or you haven't got any opportunities here coming up, or whatever it is, you really, really do struggle. And I found that, maybe some of the top artists, we've all worked incredibly hard, but when you have that wind behind the sails, you have the momentum going on with you, and you can drop a piece of content, you can drop a song, you can drop a video, you can, whatever it is, you've worked really hard to put it all together, and you really want it to, to ripple in regards to a music career. Now, some people might say you keep the music for yourself, and music is music, and just don't worry about the numbers, just focus on the art. And I try and do that sometimes. But obviously, having a neurodivergent brain, especially ADHD, it's curious. It wants to know what's going on in all areas. And I think when you're running your own music career, your own music business on your own without much support around you, it's really, really hard to see things from a different point of view. So stress can manifest in so many different areas. And I like to think that I can keep a lid on it, but I know with my neurodivergent brain, I like to watch a program at the end of the day, a TV show at the end of the day. And the reason why I watch that TV show is not necessarily to watch the TV show, it's to help my brain shut off. And more often than not, I actually conk out on the sofa and fall asleep because I can't go to bed because my brain's still, working and working all the time. And they say with a self-employed business, you can choose the 18 to 20 hours you want a day out of the 24. And I kind of feel like that is with my brain. It just doesn't stop. And that doesn't mean it's running constantly a productivity. Sometimes these thoughts are just so obsessive that it can poison my brain. And I've tried meditation, I'm trying exercise, eating, yeah, that can be a bit of an issue sometimes, especially when you're tired, especially when you need a dopamine hit. And I know there is healthy options out there. I know all the information, and consistency is a really, really important thing. But I also have to accept sometimes it's almost like you can get, 2-3 good weeks, and then you have one bad week a month. And I'm talking about a really bad week that you sort of sit there and you let the stress manifest because you're so tired. You can't do anything else. You've burnt out, and the stress has then sort of moved into anxiety, has moved into depression. And because I've had depression in the past, I'm more susceptible to it. And again, I'll go into another episode about that. But I think physical exercise is really vital. I've heard, cold showers, cold water is really, really, really vital. Obviously, eating healthily, trying to get habit tagging in your life, trying to do things. Now, this is one thing that has relieved a bit of stress. I've found things online that can automate my life, my business life. And I'll go into it in the green section as a recommendation. But if you can find things that don't cost very much, but can just relieve one of those tasks for you, then you can focus on something else. And I think trying to find those, and it's going to require some trial and error and some testing. But I think that's what we've got to do in our life. We've got to try and test as many different things within our limits, especially within your stress limits, to see what can work. Whether that is, you try a new calendar, you try a new app or a piece of software that can automate something for you. And I think the hardest thing is when you've got too many hats. So for instance, if I've got, the husband hat, I've got the father hat, I've got my business hat, I've got my guitar teaching hat, I've got my wedding business hat, I've got my, solo original stuff hat, I've got all these other hats. And as much as people can say, well, just drop one of the hats, it's just not as easy as that. What I need is a business babysitter to relieve some of the stress for me. But sometimes that can create more stress if you're trying to train someone else who is not averse to your business. And they can also cost a lot. And especially if you're not bringing in enough money, you can create even more stress. So I think it's just trying to find the areas you can and try and not make it go from sort of professional stress, which is the business, to emotional stress. Now, running your own business, having your own music career, I think we're so attached to it. It's almost like our baby, that if we hand it over to someone, and I should listen to my own advice, but handing it over to someone is like, handing your baby over to a babysitter. You want trust. You want to know that they're going to give you a return on investment, whether that's time, money. But I think, stress is it's a constant problem. It's, I think, for everybody, and especially things that are going on in the world all the time. Whether we're talking about politics, whether we're talking about, finances, whatever it is, I don't think it ever goes away. So I think we've got to try and find those coping mechanisms. So for instance, one of mine is my guitar. I go there and I teleport to another world. You'll hear that as a recurring theme throughout the podcast. But I do feel another important thing is, and I discussed this briefly with Andy in the previous podcast episode, is mindset. And I have a growth mindset. I've had lots of different failures and hiccups in the past. But what I haven't done is, if I failed in a crowdfunding mission for one of my albums, and I could have gone, crowdfunding's rubbish, but I tried it with a different system and then I was successful. So I think having that mindset, that growth mindset, is really important, because if you're caught in a fixed mindset where everything is a failure, you will just draw on your past failures all the time. Now, I know with neurodivergent brain, ADHD and all the others, that it is very easy to have sort of that rejection, that failure, that shame, that guilt constantly weighing down on us 24/7. And I find it really, really hard. It's like a thick, dark cloud over me. Even if there's like positive things going on all the time, that weight can get heavier and heavier. And then the stress strains everything. And I find it actually that it really manifests when I'm in a car and I have my children behind me. It's the sensory overload that starts to build. So it's gone from the stress in my head to, which is, obviously internal, then to the external stress. That external sensory overload starts to build, and then I will either burst, and I try not to get angry, but I most of the time I just burst into tears. And that's my indicator to show everyone else. It's just like, right, I've burst now. The balloon's burst, and I'm not going to be productive. I'm not going to be, consistent. And it's really hard. It is really, really hard. But I just think we can only do our best. And one thing to think about is when we're using our coping mechanisms, or if we're trying to do like fitness, or we're trying to eat properly, and we're trying to do all these things, there's no way it keeps up. Just try and do it whenever you can. If you're on it one day and you're like, right, I'm going to go and do some exercise, do some exercise. If you're going to go and eat properly that day, do it that day. Try and, obviously, we get into a rhythm, try and get into consistency if we can. But if it doesn't work and you're not feeling it that day, just do it the next day. and just do it the next day and over and over and over. I also think finding that support network around us, friendships, and I'm going to go into another episode with one of my best mates who helped me through my second crisis, and to hear it from his perspective, and having that support network and being able to speak to someone about stress, which we all have, but speaking to someone who's not judgmental, or they will go, oh yeah, we're all stressed. Why are you so different? I think it's just, we need to open up those channels where we can just talk about it. We can talk about stress. We can talk about mental health. We can talk about anxiety. We can talk about whatever it is, and try and feel comfortable about it, and just sit with each other and just listen to each other rather than try to fix each other. Because we all have the capability of, pulling ourselves out of the pit. We all don't need to be fixed, and especially, as a neurodivergent, I'm never going to be fixed. I just need to manage what I'm doing. And I take advice lightly, because everyone's background, everyone's experience is subjective. And that goes with stress. I think we are all stressed, but we are all different, dealing with it in different angles. And I think everyone's angle should be respected, but we should just be able to open up those channels and just talk about it freely. So anyway, that is my convoluted and improvised babble. We're now going to go into the green section, where I'm going to go through a recommendation. See you then. Hey, and welcome back to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast, where in this episode today we are talking about stress. So we're now in the green section, where I'm going to go through a recommendation. Today's recommendation is something to do with social media. Now, I like to look into increasing my fan base, increasing my followers, but I like to obviously not do it in a way where I've got to pay for these things, because that can lead you into trouble, because you're getting fake bots and all sorts of stuff as well. But there's a company called Engagement Boost. Now, what you do is you pay a weekly fee. It has an engine where your Instagram profile follows your competitors' followers. Okay, so it will do this automatically. And if you follow them, say for instance, it could be, in my case, acoustic guitar competitors. They could be, acoustic guitarists, acoustic guitar companies, whatever it is, my endorsements, blah, 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 blah. And this engine will follow their followers. And more often than not, because obviously I've selected competitors that match up to my brand, my sound, etc., etc., those people that I follow will follow back. But then what Engagement Boost does is, if they don't follow back, after 24 hours, they will unfollow them. So it keeps your profile nice and fresh. Now, the greatest thing is this will increase my followers on Instagram. Yeah, and it's not fake bots. You're not paying for anything that's going to damage your account. You're only following people that are in your niche and you're in your, field of work. But the beauty about this is, not only does it increase your followers, and if you can get up to, 10K, you can start to unlock a few other features on Instagram, but you get opportunities. People actually go and listen to your videos, and then you can start building up your fan base. And if you've set up things in the background, like a free download or, a free guide, if in my case, I do that for my acoustic guitar course or whatever it is, they can then go into your world. Okay, and I would set all that up in the background, a free download, and they get, once they go and sign up for that free download, they get an email, and then they're in your email list, and then you can then point them to wherever it is. So this is a really great tool, because this just works in the background. I could go and hire someone to go and follow, my competitors' followers and do all of that. But I would probably get a lot of questions. I'd probably have to spend a lot more on that person. Now, this is only, I think it's like $15 a week, Whereas most people charge, I don't know, it's not even maybe $15 an hour. And to do all that follow and unfollow stuff would take hours and hours and hours. So, and also if you've got like a digital worker working for you 24/7 who has no complaints, they don't ask you questions, whatever it is, it makes life so much easier. And this is what I'm talking about, trying to find those things in your life that can relieve stress. So for instance, my wife and I, we have work full time. We have children. We're trying to run a house. We're trying to run a business. So we're now looking into, getting a cleaner. We're trying to look into, maybe someone who can manage the garden now and again. Now, yes, it's extra expense, but what that does is relieve me some hours to go and work on the business, to be able to find more finance and other areas. So that's in real life, but online, which is a massive part of being a musician these days, try and look for those areas where you're spending so much time. It could be things like we talked about with Andy Booth, who uses later.com. Now I use Metrical, and I've spliced up all my videos, all my old videos into 30-second portrait videos, and I've scheduled them all in on all platforms via Metrical for the next 3 to 4 months. And they come out every single day with different hashtags and things as well. And for the first time, I've not had to think about social media whatsoever, because I'm getting an increase of followers across the board on all channels. I'm getting a major boost on Instagram, and all my old content's going out there. So people are seeing the old videos, different snippets here and there all the time. So I'm now waiting to release new videos in the future. So this has relieved that sort of social media space. And what I'm trying to do now is not log into social media anymore, so I can go and focus on other areas. Now I'm trying to find other areas, other apps, other pieces of software where I'm going to be able to automate other different areas of my business, which will again help me to, relieve that stress as much as possible. So that is Engagement Boost and Metrical. I hope you find that helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Take care.